There was a time when I truly believed that breaking the TV screen would allow the people inside to step out, or that if I shouted loudly enough from the ground, the pilot of a soaring airplane would hear me. Our childhood was filled with such wild, whimsical, and utterly fascinating beliefs. A world where logic had little influence and imagination reigned supreme. Growing up, I realized most of those beliefs were entirely false. But even now, thinking about them brings a smile to my face. Let's take a trip back to that world of innocent wonders. At one point, I was convinced that smashing the TV screen would let the characters escape into my living room. It made perfect sense at the time. If they were visible inside, there had to be a way out. Reality, however, was cruel. Breaking the screen didn't release anyone. It just left a mess and an angry parent. The night before an exam, eating an egg meant disaster. It was an unshakable belief that an egg could erase everything I had studied. The irony, eggs are known to enhance brain function, not sabotage it. But childhood logic had its own rules. Seeing an airplane flying overhead, I would yell at the top of my lungs, hoping the pilot would look down and wave. Altitude, noise insulation, or the sheer impossibility of the idea never crossed my mind. I was convinced that with the right amount of enthusiasm, I could bridge the distance between Earth and sky. Swallowing a fruit seed meant one thing, doom. I was certain that a tree would start growing inside my stomach, its branches pushing through my ribs, until one day a mango or guava would pop out of my mouth. The digestive system, of course, had other plans. If two people accidentally knocked their heads together, we believed they would grow horns. The stronger the impact, the bigger the horns. Turns out, the only thing that grew was a headache, no majestic antlers in sight. For the longest time, I believed that one could not become a parent without getting married. This was the universal truth as dictated by the grown-ups around us. But as I got older, I realized that biology didn't quite work that way. A strange conviction held that if you saw someone in a dream and flipped your pillow over, they would dream about you too. It seemed like the most logical system of dream synchronization. But neuroscience begs to differ. Dreams don't quite operate on pillow flipping magic. A slap on the cheek meant a doomed love life. I was genuinely terrified that one accidental smack would seal my fate as a lifelong bachelor. Now, of course, I know that relationship status has little to do with childhood mischief. Double-decker buses fascinated me. Surely if a bus had two levels, there had to be two drivers, one for the lower deck and one for the upper deck. Otherwise, how would it work? The realization that a single driver controlled everything was nothing short of a revelation. For the longest time, I thought actors never actually touched each other in films. Every fight, every hug, and every kiss was some sort of cinematic illusion. It wasn't until much later that I understood movie magic wasn't always just clever camera tricks. Losing a tooth was a big deal, but we had a solution. Throw it into a monkey's burrow and a perfect shiny new tooth would grow in its place. So many precious teeth were sacrificed to this bizarre ritual, but not once did it result in an enviable Hollywood smile. Drinking AFZA was a shortcut to earning divine rewards. At least that's what I believed. The more I drank, the more blessings I would accumulate. Turns out, no matter how refreshing, a beverage's spiritual value is purely fictional. Visiting a roadside tea stall was a ticket to being labeled a troublemaker. In our minds, tea shops were where bad boys hung out, a place no well-mannered child should enter. Growing up, I realized they were just places where people had conversations. Nothing more, nothing less. Playing with fire led to bedwetting. It was an indisputable fact in our world. If you so much as lit a matchstick, you were doomed for the night. No one knew why, but no one dared to challenge it. The moon followed us everywhere. No matter where we went, it was always there, silently tagging along. The idea that it was simply too far away to appear differently from our perspective never crossed our minds. It was our celestial companion, faithfully walking with us. Growing up shattered these childhood myths, but they remain some of the most beautiful lies we ever believed. Even today, when I see children holding on to these little fantasies, I don't argue. I just smile, knowing that one day they too will realize the truth. But until then, let them dream, because no matter how untrue, childhood imagination is what makes those years the most magical time of our lives.